Hey y'all, it's Santana, aka Tana's Book Diary, and I'm back with another video. I'm currently fighting the sun, so let's make this video really quick. Based off the title of today's video, I will be giving you guys books with disability representation in honor of April being Autism Acceptance Month or Autism Awareness Month. I know that the name has kind of changed over the last few years, but I wanted to give you guys some book recs with the main characters that are autistic, but also with other disabilities. I work in disability services, so this kind of is very close to what I do job-wise. So yeah, let's get into it. I created kind of like a little section, so you might see me look down. I have an iPad now, thanks to my mother. So I am looking at my notes. I'm gonna give you guys 3 book recs for autism representation. So the first one is The Louise Ortega Survival Club by Sonora Reyes. The main character is autistic. This is a young adult book, but it talks about a heavy topic of SA and consent in high school especially. So just be mindful of that if that might be triggering to you, or just you might not expect it, because the cover is very colorful and the overall vibe kind of feels, it's kind of a funny book, but it's dealing with heavy conversations of like, again, boundaries and dealing with being autistic in school, and then like that socializing is already very hard, and then you're able to find someone that you have a crush on or someone that you like, and then they take advantage of you in this way. So we follow our main character, and they are assaulted by Louise Ortega at a party, and our main character, and I cannot remember their name, I'm sorry, hasn't fully processed what happened. Kind of just was like one of those things where they're like, that was weird, but I don't know if that's like what was supposed to happen or if I'm supposed to feel this way, because they're pretty inexperienced in that realm of like dating and intimacy. So soon they find out that other girls and other people at the school have also been a victim of Louise Ortega. So they create a survival club, and it's also LGBTQ rep as well. The main character ends up realizing that she's attracted to women, not men. And so that is also like a lot of self-discovery. It's definitely coming of age, but also a great book for young people to read when they're trying to learn how to navigate relationships in high school and how to be safe and, again, asserting those boundaries. So that's the first one with autism representation. The second one is This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan, which is a contemporary romance where the male main character, Judah, if I'm correct, one of his sons is autistic. And so we get to see it from the lens of a parent, specifically a father who is taking care of his son, and how he's navigating taking care of his son while also being in a relationship, and how that also kind of blends into each other, because then they become a blended family. So it's also interesting to see it from that perspective, from the partner, Philadad. So that one is a great book as well, if you want to read about like parents with autistic children falling in love and how they navigate that. And then my last one is Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. The male main character is autistic. I read this book ages ago. Contemporary romance, very spicy. They're British. And it's very like awkward banter, but it works for the 2 main characters. Like, it just works a lot. And it's very interesting that the male main character is like naturally kind of like awkward and quirky, because usually you read like the female main characters like that, but Eve Brown is definitely very eccentric. I do remember that she has purple hair. She's very outgoing, very loud and bubbly and just expressive with her clothing. So I thought that was really cool how it was kind of like the opposite, because I feel like, at least for me, when I read books, oftentimes it's the female main character that's kind of like reserved, toned down, very shy, awkward, you know, the whole thing. And so yeah, that is my 3 main books with autism representation that I have read personally, that I really enjoyed and would definitely recommend. The next category is anxiety and depression. I have 3 for this category as well. The first one is Audrey and Bash Are Just Friends by Tia Williams. Female main character, Audrey, has anxiety and is also a caretaker to her mother, who has a chronic illness, chronic migraine. So we get to see kind of two different perspectives. We see her as a young adult in high school dealing with being severely anxious and having school, pandemic, college being kind of on the horizon as like some of the stressors of just like taking care of your mother at a very young age and being parentified and adultified at a very young age is really interesting perspective. And also being a young Black girl with anxiety, how that oftentimes shows up differently than what is in the statistics and what the doctors and psychiatrists say. So that was really interesting to see that. I really resonated a lot with Audrey. I have severe anxiety, so it just felt like seeing younger me then. But then when I was in high school, I did not have the answers. I didn't have the diagnosis. I was just kind of like, what is this feeling? So it was really nice to see that and refreshing in a young adult book. It was very honest. It was not shying away from any of the hard conversations. So I really enjoyed that. And I love Tia Williams. The next one is By the Time You Read This by April Simpkins and Chelsea Chris. This is a memoir about Chelsea Chris. She was Miss USA. And like back in 2019, if I'm correct, she won. And then she became kind of like a correspondent for E! News or something along those lines. A couple years back had passed away due to suicide, and she struggled a lot with her mental health. So she had a lot of anxiety and depression. And so this book was written by her, but also I think her mother, once she passed, it was released after she passed. And so this book was like really heavy in the sense of like you kind of see where her mind was at during these pivotal moments. It's just one of those things where you just never know what anyone's going through, and no matter how much glitz and glam you see, we just don't know the true them. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And it was really sad. She was very young. I think she was in her mid to late 30s, and she just had so much left. It just weighed her down. Like honestly, like reading it, you could tell like it was just taking a major toll. But I like that it wasn't shaming her for her decision, because we know that that was very hard to do. I think oftentimes people think that that is something quick and easy that you would do, but I think you take a lot of time to really truly think about it. So yeah, that was definitely an important read. And my last one for the anxiety and depression rep is Thirsty by Jazz Hammonds. This book is focusing on the female main character. She has severe anxiety and depression and also is dealing with substance abuse. And it's just a crazy story in the sense that a lot of teenagers deal with this same exact thing, where the peer pressure and just the want to be liked can really drive someone to do things like taking drugs or drinking and not really knowing the effects of it, because it's just like your mental health, like you're just literally so far gone that you're like, I don't even care anymore. I think the best, because it's weird to say best, but the best comparison to Thirsty is Rue from Euphoria, where it's just this young girl trying to figure herself out. She's in this relationship with this very popular girl, and she's not as popular, but she's popular adjacent. And we just see her trying to follow and ride the coattails of her girlfriend. And it ends up backfiring on her. Like her girlfriend ends up being horrible. She ends up losing a really great friend in the process because her girlfriend kind of drove a wedge between her and the other girl. And we see her try to join this sorority in college, and it just ends up being so much more to it. And the whole book was just anxiety inducing, but it was also very like, I need to read the next page. I need to see if she's going to be okay. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this book. Again, it is heavy, but it was really good read. And the ending was very hopeful, I will say. So it didn't end on a bad note. It ended on a more hopeful note. So that's all the book recs for anxiety and depression. I only have one book with OCD rep that I have read, and that is Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. The male main character has OCD, and it's really interesting to read about it in a book, and again with the male main character. It was just a cutesy young adult book, but that was kind of just one of those things that made him him. that were kind of like unexplained, like the compulsions that would just kind of pop up in the dialogue as something he would do, but it wasn't heavily zoomed in on like, this is OCD, you know what I mean? And I really enjoyed that. I think it's good to normalize these disorders as well and not make it the entire storyline. My next category is chronic illness. And so I have two for that one. First is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. The female main character, Eva, has chronic migraines. She is the mother of Audrey from Audrey and Bash Are Just Friends. Eva is an author. This is a contemporary romance. She's an author. She writes erotica. She's very successful. Sometimes she's unable to reap all of the benefits of being a successful author because of her chronic migraines. Oftentimes, like in certain rooms, she can't stand to be there too long because of the lights are too bright, or a migraine will come on during a panel and she'll have to leave early. And so we kind of see how this affects her daily life, her career, and also we see how it affects her being a present mother and being in a relationship with Shane. I like that it does not romanticize her having a chronic illness. It kind of shows us the real, the raw, the unappealing aspects where, again, it's like you'll be on a date and then she'll have to leave just because a headache came on. But I also like that her partner and her family and those around her help her and don't shame her for trying. Like she does, like throughout the book, she's trying. Like she really is trying her best, but we see how it affects her mental health and how she shows up for other people. And 7 Days in June was one of the books that I read that truly got me back into reading and loving romance at the time. And so I am forever going to recommend this in any video for anything. But Tia Williams does a great job of talking about mental health and chronic illness. And again, she just makes it very real. So yeah. And my next one for chronic illness is Reggie and Delilah's Year of Falling by Elise Bryant. The female main character has chronic migraines similar to Eva in the other book, but also the male main character has dyslexia. So I think, again, similar to 7 Days in June, we see this, how this affects young people, because this is a young adult romance, and she's really into music, the female main character, and we see how this affects her stage presence when she's on stage if a headache is coming on, or we see how this affects her again with when she's on a date with Reggie. I haven't read too many books where the character has dyslexia and how that shows up. I've seen it on TV shows, but it's always interesting to just read it in different formats. So again, I love the representation and how it normalizes these things, because oftentimes if you don't deal with it, sometimes you could just feel very removed from it. And then I have a other category. They fall into different places. Demystifying Disability by Emily Ledoux is a memoir, and it's just talking about, just unpacks any misconceptions about having a disability. I think just in general, just as like things I say to people when I talk to them about what I do, is just everyone wants access. You know, when you make everything accessible, it benefits us all, not just people with disabilities, you know. And so I think that this book does a good job at also just talking about how we can all benefit from making everything accessible, but also just navigating the world with a disability and like that perspective of it if you are able-bodied. The next one is Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. We see the female main character, Hendrix, as a caregiver for her mother with dementia. I also like seeing it from the other side of the caretaker. Being a caretaker is sometimes a thankless job, so I just want to send love and light to everyone who is a caretaker or has been a caretaker, whether for their family member or just in general for another person. That is truly a really, really hard job, physically, mentally, emotionally, and you are truly appreciated. And so yeah, I really liked this because, again, oftentimes you kind of see sometimes caretakers as just like a one-dimensional thing, like they're taking care of this person, but they have a life, they work, they have a social life, they have hobbies, they have things that they like to do. So it was very interesting to see Hendrix, this CEO, this mogul who has this booming business, being in these big high spaces, going back to her small town to take care of her mother who has dementia. So it just, again, the juxtaposition, but also how people have a lot of things going on that you don't even know, big or small. So I just like that. Kennedy Ryan also does a great job. And I forgot to mention this, but Real, she has sickle cell anemia, and I this is why I love Kennedy Ryan, because she always just does it so well and just eases it into the story as it is just another part of the character. It's not a whole thing about it. It's just who they are, and I just love that. So Real by Kennedy Ryan is also another rec that I have to throw in as I'm talking. My last one is Madness, Race and Insanity in a Jim Crow Asylum by Antonia Hilton. This is a book that just discusses race and being disabled in the 1940s and 70s in Crownsville Hospital in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. This is very close to home. I am from Maryland and Prince George's County specifically, but nonetheless very close. And again, I work in disability services, so I thought this was very on the nose for me to read. I needed to read it, and I thought it was very interesting how this hospital was built. It was built by its future patients as a form of rec therapy. It was just free labor, but they used it to make it seem like, oh, this is therapy for them. They're learning how to build, they're using their hands, they're feeling important, they're gaining all these skills. When in reality, you just did not want to pay people, pay contractors to build the building, nor did you want to pay the patients either. It was a great read. It was crazy to know that this is only 50 years ago, only 60 years ago, when the first couple at the time called asylums were built for Black people who had mental and physical disability. So again, it was just crazy to know that we're not that far removed from the treatment. And well, you know, it's, again, being Black period was already just hard as it was, and then you add being disabled, you just put another notch in your belt as being marginalized. So again, it just was crazy to read to hear the stories from the families and the people directly affected by Crownsville Hospital, and how many people who weren't even disabled were sent to this hospital simply due to prisons and jails being at capacity, which then exacerbated anyone else who had an actual mental or physical disability. And it was just a crazy read. I highly recommend listening or reading that when you have a chance, because that one was very eye-opening, to say the least. But I want to wrap this video up by saying, if you can, whether this month, next month, anytime this year, I think you should definitely read books about and featuring people with disabilities. I think it's truly important to open and expand your horizons as far as who and what you're reading about. And I think reading about people with varying disabilities is one of those things you should do. And it does not have to be a luxury kind of book. It could literally be a romance, a young adult, a thriller. It could be anything, honestly. Just opening the floor and expanding is really the key. But let me know down in the comments below if you guys have any recommendations where the main character has a disability. I'm always into expanding my horizons genre-wise as well. But I will see you in the next video.